on your computer. Okay, just to make sure, can you hear us, Noreen? Looks like he said yes, but you're muted, so.
It's still showing up when I bring it up.
Yeah, just minimize it.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to get Noreen to unmute.
We all set? Well,
We should be. I think Noreen did respond to me that she could hear me, but she was muted when she said it. So as long as people can hear me.
okay. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of 27 March of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Please rise and pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's the screen. Oh, okay.
Noreen, do the roll call or?
Yep. Commissioner Claffey. Commissioner Claffey. Commissioner Fox.
Here.
Commissioner Minor.
Here.
Commissioner Nafis. Commissioner Pascarelli. Chairman Sobieski.
Here.
Commissioner Woods. Commissioner Droz. Commissioner Hoffman.
Here.
Commissioner Wakama.
She's online.
She's online.
Okay. Okay, you're all set.
Sound line?
Steve Woods is not online.
I believe we have enough for a forum.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to seat Commissioner Hoffman and Commissioner Woods. And Commissioner Droz did tell me he was gonna show up, but he will be late. Coming up from Salem, I believe. Okay. Mr. Planner, approval of the agenda?
Yep, and I'll just said, seating for Claffey and Nafis. No, Woods. Oh, yeah, but we have,
You have two others.
Claffey and Nafis also need to have people seated for them. So that would be, Walkama and Rose when it gets here. Okay.
Did Susan get sworn in? That's the only thing I don't know about.
Yeah, she will get sworn in when she comes back, yeah.
But she's
Okay,
not
but she has not been
sworn in, so she can't be seated.
Okay, good. Not good, but yes,
Right.
good to know. All right, thank you.
The agenda, Mr. Planner, we all set with that or?
No changes to the agenda.
Okay, very good. Public participation for items not listed on the agenda. Is there anybody who wishes to come up and speak?
Steve will be right here, just so we know. Don't be shy.
Okay, anybody online at all?
No one online with their hand raised, Mr. Chairman.
Any remarks by commissioners? No? Okay. Public hearings, we don't have any, am I correct?
Correct.
Correct.
All right. Approval of the minutes, and we have several minutes that have to be approved. We get these here. Here's, okay, yeah, there's one here, 13 December, there's some corrections made. Everybody has seen them, just the commissioner's pleasure. Make a motion to approve them as amended. There's second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. There's one more. I think. Okay, March 13th. We're gonna, this is the existing minutes. There's no changes I see on this one, so I'd like a motion to approve 13 March, the minutes.
So moved. Pascarelli.
Second, Commissioner Hoffman, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Yep, and Noreen, just so you know, for that first motion, it was Commissioner Minor and Commissioner Hoffman for the first and second.
Thank you.
All right. Documents and summarization of amendments to the TPZ regulation and minutes, we've already done that, am I correct?
Yes, approval minutes were good.
Approval of those minutes were done. EPZ regular meeting minutes, we've already done. New business.
No new business.
No business, right?
No new business, all old business.
Correct. All business. Mr. Planner.
Okay, so as the commission may remember, and I might actually have you bring up those plans and try to share them and see how it works. If you can grab that. So this is for petition 224, the site plan approval for construction of a 3,000 square foot contractor's garage and office in the industrial zone at 161 Carr Avenue. Applicant owner contact James Campbell. So as the commission remember at the last meeting, the application did not have Conservation Commission approval. It does have it now. At the last meeting, a couple items were discussed. Staff has prepared a motion that has those items after the conditions, but the main one was that the sidewalk was determined it wasn't required as there's no other sidewalks on Carr Avenue. It is a dead end street and it is a minor street. And then the second item that was discussed is regarding the buffer. So during the buffer, because of the industrial zone, even if it does fall in the middle of the road where the zoning is or on that side, that there would be a 25-foot buffer if the commission finds it's necessary to protect the residential nature of the neighborhood. The applicant displayed the way that the building elevations look, that it was a little more of a residential look compared to a straight industrial warehouse type of look. Again, front door, normal doors on the front as far as that goes. And it was determined that a 25-foot buffer was not required. However, the commission asked the applicant to increase the landscaping. The applicant has added in 4 small evergreens along with these trees that are proposed. So again, there will be a little more buffering, again, not required because again, the nature of this road, the industrial uses that are there, and that this being a building with at least architecture that's more compatible. Compared to some of the other industrial uses. So from there, the last item that we were looking at is concerning the zoning. So as part of your staff report, what I'm going to do is share this and then I will hand it over. So the one items that I'd like to point out. So as part of the staff report, I kind of highlighted what's going on with the zoning in the area. The applicant's engineer had discussed that in the history, it was typically either considered the center line of the zone of the road for where the zone is. I went back and looked at all the historic zoning maps. What I kind of found is what you can see on the screen is up until 2014, the roads did not have zones. The roads for the town of Newington were pretty much always displayed as white blank spaces. There currently are some roads right now on the zoning map, and it's not necessarily consistent. The state roads are pretty much always that way, but there are some town roads too that still don't have it. And you can kind of see what changed between 2014 on the left and 2016 on the right is the style got changed to show improved pavement within the right of ways. And then the polygons were kind of pushed out to where they would meet the other zones. So while there was no zoning in the road, in 2016, this shows that. And you can actually see too, where Carr Avenue comes down from the top, you actually have a small portion of residential zone that right of way is colored in, that's between 2 industrial properties. This is actually, I looked at the zoning map too, Superior, over by the Berlin Turnpike has this issue too of where you have a residential zone right between 2 business Berlin Turnpike zones. So this was more of a function of GIS mapping and filling out the polygons. So that's kind of what staff has discovered, that between those 2 times, that 2014 and 2016, that there was a drafting issue that caused this zone line to change. I researched all of the zoning amendments that were done in the map amendments at the time, and I didn't find anything that would have changed the zone line in this area or find anything that would have rezoned the streets within the town. And for example, and then it got carried forward. Again, the town has flipped back and forth between how they displayed the map, whether improved roads or not. We see in the 2017 zoning map, the roads disappeared and then the zone line was kept. So as part of the zoning regulation, The provisions, call out for specific things of how you view the zones, that if it's in the middle, it's in the middle, that if it's on a boundary line, it's on a boundary line. But because this is kind of a unique circumstance where there is some uncertainty about where this line is supposed to be, that in case of uncertainty, the commission shall determine the location of the boundary. So that was 2.2.3G. So working with the applicant, that's what's requested of the commission tonight. Other than that, staff has minor comments that are remaining, that are as part of conditions of approval. Again, they are minor in nature. And this is the last item to remain to be resolved with this application. Again, if the commission determines that the zone line is how it's mapped, then the parking would have to be removed from the front and it would have to be revised. Again, this is a smaller lot. It's kind of a unique zone when you compare it to other industrial zones. Or if the commission determines that there's no zoning on the roads as it was shown before, and we'll work forward to update the map and rectify this. But if the commission determines that there's no zoning on the road or it was shown at the parcel boundaries on either side, then that 25-foot parking requirement doesn't apply because the zone line will not be up against the residential property. And even if it's considered the center line of the 50-foot right-of-way, then that would actually put it at the edge of the property, the no parking 25-foot of the zone boundary. So this is all about the zone boundary. And from here, the applicant will update you with anything else they've done with the plan, and that's my piece.
Well, I think that this kind of sounds like, when GIS got put in, the zones got moved and it shouldn't have been, my opinion. So I think the street does not have a zone on it. So I think this is just my opinion. We're gonna ask the commissions on that. So I don't see an issue with this, but Commissioner Minor?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a GIS mapping issue that just didn't carry over, and I would prefer that the zone should not carry to the street. Just leave it as it was originally intended.
Commissioner Pascal?
That makes sense to me. My question, is any determination we make about this zone situation now, does that apply in the future to this property? Will it become, or was this only a determination if these folks decide to sell it? Would we have to come back and look at this again in the future?
Yep. So what I will do on the list, I'll add it on the multiple things list of everything that needs to be updated. I do want to solve this issue with the zoning maps clearly. So we'll have to go through that process. But for me, it applies to this application that's in front of you. Again, determine the zone boundary. It could apply to the other ones on the road as well. We would kind of carry that forward. But as you can see how it was developed out in the past, there are multiple areas that have parking within 25 feet on this street.
Commissioner Fox?
I think that I agree with you, Paul, that there's no zoning here. As far as precedence for the future, I think that's for the future. I don't know. That's sad that we want to take it up and make those whatever changes you feel. But in the meantime, for now, I have no problem.
Commissioner Hoffman?
Yeah, I'm in concurrence with everybody as to where it should stay.
Okay.
Okay. Also, then I'll.
Yep. And you want to reshare that? So the site plan, color rendering is up for you to take a look at, and I would like to turn it over to Mr. Bongiovanni.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff. For the record, my name is Alan Bongiovanni, representing James Campbell. This is a continuation for our application for 161 Parr Avenue. I agree with most of what the town planner said regarding the zone. We have always had an official zone map in the town of Newington. Newington's not unique. Once the advent of GIS came in, different people started drafting different things, and inadvertently things got changed. The only way you can change the zone map in the town of Newington, or any town for that matter in the state of Connecticut, is for an official action, public hearing, and a proceeding by this commission. That never happened. So the zone lines have not changed. There is, I believe, even a provision in regulations where it talks about when Well, the street is not specifically zoned, then the zone lines, the budding zone lines are both the same. Right. Either way, it's in favor of this application. There is no parking within 25 feet of the residential zone. Just a couple other issues that we discussed and I was going to look into. The issue of whether we need handicap parking. According to ADA, because this is a private facility, we do not need to have handicap parking. According to our regulations, there is something in there that talks about a need for parking, handicap parking, but under 5, probably not necessary. We talked with the building official. The building code requires a handicap parking space. Hence, we still have the parking as presented. There's 1 handicap space, 1 regular space, and that's required to meet the building code. So we were unable to reduce the amount of paving, but in response to the commissioner's comments at the last meeting, we did add a row of arborvitae, so it'll provide some screening for a couple of cars that are parked there. Beyond that, I think our presentation is complete. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions or questions? Thank you, Mr. Longevitie.
Let me just grab the slideshow back.
Well, sure.
No, I mean, I can just, let me just grab the slideshow and run it.
We're gonna vote on this now, Paul, I think.
Yes, and staff has a motion prepared for you.
Petition. Yep. Petition 02-24, site plan approval for construction of a 3,000 square foot contractor's garage and office in the industrial zone, I zone at 161 Carr Avenue. Applicant owner contact James Campbell. Motion to approve with conditions. To approve petition 0-24 with the following conditions. 1, no outside storage is permitted as part of this approval. 2, the plan shall be modified to specify that the slope of the rear yard does not exceed 2 to 1. 3, the floor plan and elevations shall be added to the final set. 4, MDC approval shall be required prior to the issuance of a building. As part of this approval, the commission finds that a sidewalk per section 3.16.5 and a 25-foot buffer per section 6.10.5 are not necessary on the street frontage of the property.
Second or a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All set. Next petition, the petition 24/24.
No, no.
You're gonna share from, okay.
Okay, so town staff would like to report that the wetlands approval has been granted for this application. It was granted by the wetland agent. And we have received some additional information regarding the drainage system. Some of the work that has been done, you'll see that's reflected in the staff's recommendation for conditions of approval. And I would actually like to hand it over to Mr. Vaca to explain the changes to the plan and where it's at today.
Very good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. For the record, my name is Francis Hawk. I'm a professional engineer at BSC Group. I'm here on behalf of representatives of State Point Properties for the 67 Page Road redevelopment. I'm going to keep my presentation brief. I'm going to speak specifically just about some of the changes that occurred as a result of some of the town staff and some of the findings they wanted to see prior to this meeting. Again, we're going to respect your request, section 2 along with section 5. In particular, this evening, I'd like to point out a few items that were specific to some of the comments. There was a concern in the previous inspection, during the previous meeting about utilizing the portions of the landscaping area adjacent to the parking here for snow storage, but in order to be in accordance with the specifics of the regulation, there needs to be at least a 3 planting here, and this can't be utilized for snow storage. We're going to utilize the main portion of the snow storage, not the bottom of the property. There is no disposal of oil or contaminated parts in the exterior dumpster that has been identified on the plan. There will be an interior dumpster, an interior trash receptacle for any type of maintenance or equipment associated with equipment to be maintained on site. There was a comment with regard to the snow storage being located within the drainage swale. I did confirm with our landscape architect that any of the snow plantings would not negatively affect any of the plant of the swale, but we have pulled the snow back, the snow storage area back to basically be on the vegetated filter strip between the swale and the storage yard itself. And then with regard to the site lighting, there was a request by the commission to potentially look at doing a basically a motion sensor or something that like. After speaking with the end user, Sunbelt, they're concerned about the yard being dark for security reasons, especially with the amount of storage that's going to be back there, potential for someone to potentially hide. So in lieu of using the motion sensor, they are proposing what I'm showing here is basically the blue item you see on the portion of the light, basically a full cutoff shield. So any of the light that would basically come out of the light fixture itself will basically head down or slightly, forward. I'd like to also note that as part of requirements for the town of Newington, there is no light trespass over any of the boundary lines, in particular to the north. So essentially, any of the residences that will take place for 333, they will be located at or above any of the fixtures that will be identified. So you will, first off, you're not going to see any candle power. And second of all, there should not be any visual view of any of the luminaires within the lights. So that was basically the negotiation that we'd like to have with the commission regarding that. There was also a comment with regard to providing further information on the drainage swale itself. So we provided clarification in particular to the town engineer. I had questions with regard to the storage capacity and how the design of the drainage swale would function. We provided that additional information, as well as clarifications to the calculations for the wide line swale. There is, I spoke with NBC yesterday. They provided this letter, which basically is an availability letter, which should allow us to receive approval from zoning. But again, we do recognize that as a commission, we do need full approval of the availability capacity analysis that was being proposed. NBC does not have any concern. It's just a matter of filing the appropriate paperwork, which has already been filed. It's just, crossing our T's and our I's, dotting our I's. And I think we should receive approval from NBC and with regard to NBC connections. And that's one of the main items, especially in regard to some of the concerns with the Wetland Commission and the Conservation Commission, was there was some blockages in the pipes. This photo that you see on screen occurred on this past Monday. So they went into the pipes. They have basically a circular saw that can go in and clear out any of the root obstructions that the town staff had concerned with at the previous meeting. That has all been addressed. There was a condition, I believe, to ensure that the inspection of the piping is clear, that the component is in the height of things with outstanding, but we will work directly with Mr. Cooper as far as clearances on the inspections on that. With that, that's basically the summary of my presentation. If you have additional questions, I just do my best to answer.
All you all set?
Yep. Again, staff has provided a draft motion with conditions. Again, this was written last week. At the end of last week, and work has been done to Monday, but the conditions are representative of the materials you have in your packet.
Commissioner Meyer, any questions?
No, just the only clarification was on the trackpad that was discussed before, which I think has now been addressed, and just the radius of coming in and going out. That was addressed for the truck traffic.
Yep, those have both been addressed. I don't have it directly in front of me. We did add tracking pad. We will add a detail to the final plans, and then yes, We had from the original meeting, we have evidence that the access to the site for both the truck and for the fire department does not encroach over top of the bridge.
That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Pascal,
No questions.
Commissioner Fox, Commissioner Hopper, I'm fine. Very good. I really have no questions other than the fact, because you have so much root blockage in there, is there some type of vegetation or trees that have a tendency to grow into that pipe? I'm just curious.
Blockage actually, upon further inspection, was not actually root blockage. The inspection, the inspector that performed the inspection assumed it was root blockage. It actually turned out to be a piece of wire mesh that had basically flown down the pipe. Ended up making its way down the pipe, and they were able to basically grab onto it and make it back out, so they don't have a concern.
All right, that's always first time. Okay, thank you. Okay, wanna read the proposal?
Petition 04-24 site plan modification for a contractor's equipment sales service use in the planned development zone, PD zone at 67 Payne Road. Applicant BSC Group Incorporated, owner Payne Road 67 LLC. Contact Frank Bob. We're over the tables.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so we're reading the wrong one.
Oh, yeah. So that's a motion to, it was incorrect, motion to approve with conditions.
Motion to approve petition 04-24 with the following conditions. 1, MDC approval is required prior to the issuance of building permits. 2, the applicant shall submit the final stormwater system inspection and maintenance report to the approved subject to comments from the town engineer. 3, subject to final review and approval of the stormwater management report by the town engineer. 4, the site plan shall be modified in the following manner. A, show terminus and input of 10-foot CPP on north side of property. B, update photometric plan to be approved by the town planner. C, include tracking pad detail. If you go.
Yeah.
If the
Yep.
commission is inclined to approve.
Oh, no, that's the,
That's it.
so yeah, that's it.
Okay, there's a motion.
Yeah, just a clarification, Kenich.
Come in, you're right.
Second.
Move to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good.
And Noreen, that was Commissioner Minor for the second.
Thank you.
On the agenda, there's partial site approval, acceptance for bond request, approval of petition 2321 at 333 Brown, Penny White. Contact James Anderson.
Grab a chair and slide it out. A little awkward setup.
Is there any matching thing for this one or?
Yep. So there are maps, so it'll depend on, so what I'll do is, I can run through some photos to show the current condition of the site. We inspected on the 25th. Oh, no, they're on the slideshow.
Oh.
So as it was kind of noted at the last meeting too, that the interior courtyard has been sidewalks and the pedestrian areas have been completed. Soil has been brought up pretty much to the most edge of the curb, so it's been filled around the site. There's very few areas that need to be a little bit top dressed, but for the most part, it's ready for the landscaper. As you can see in the bottom part of this picture, that all the ramps and pedestrian areas have been shimmed. So this is actually looking across at building 2. At the last meeting, this area was even less complete. As you can see, this would be right across from the building that they're looking to get CO'd. Significant progress is being made. They're putting down the actual sub base in a lot of areas for pavement. They put down sub base for sidewalk. So again, this area is progressing, and I believe per per their phasing plan, sometime in April is where this area would actually be available for parking as well. And this is between building one, which to the right, the area that would be requesting CO'd. The left, as you can see, is building two. It's a lot cleaner, a lot less materials in front of it, and progress is continuing. And then building three is way down, and then the furthest part, which there's still construction happening on that building as well. Again, interior of the area that you're looking at for building one, as you can see, the area has been loamed. And waiting for landscaping. Progress is being made on the pool. The actual gunite is all poured and everything's kind of in place, and the deck will be continuing, I believe soon is when the plan is for that. And the applicant can enlighten you a little more on the timing. So this is the corner, again, building one in the center, building two on the right. As you can see, sidewalks are along the street frontage for the Payne Road access drive. And this would be kind of that area of, again, it should be complete come April in front of the building, more or less. But it'll be complete around building one. That fencing will be there. There'll be scrim installed and for a good portion of it to kind of give a more residential feel for the residents moving in. Yep. This is the fire access drive that was added in. So that does need, again, just a little bit more of the material put in, I think, to bring it up to final grade, but that's something staff would recommend would be done again prior to any occupancy and all of the final fencing installed. This is behind building one. You can see the garages are now complete, siding is on, they're ready to go. So progress has been made. Curbing, everything is in behind the building. The only thing that's really complete to be done is final landscaping and then fencing around the air conditioning units. And moving around towards the front of that building, as you can see, the site lighting has been installed. Before any CO is issued, staff would of course go out there at nighttime to view the lighting just to make sure that is installed per plan, working. Again, that's one of the safety items that's required that should not be bonded. Again, just the ramping that's put in. This is a picture from the applicant that was sent over today. Again, just showing that there are now no cars parked on that Payne Road access way. That would be staff's recommendation as part of any condition. Again, this is the main access that will be used for the residential portion of the site. And that, no parking period on that road. And then staff would require that that at least a temporary markings were put in on the binder while waiting for the final pavement, final markings. And this is the corner, so this is the corner where staff is actually recommending and has met on the site with the developer. This fence will actually be pulled back a little more. And the key is to have a 25-foot site triangle, which is your typical site triangle at this corner that, again, you have your Jersey barriers. Everything above that is clear. The fence runs at a diagonal, 25, clear area for someone coming up on this intersection, just to make sure they can see cars from the other side. And staff is recommending that all traffic control devices be either installed permanently or temporarily. So if there was a stop sign that's supposed to be at this location, if the permanent one cannot be put in place, then staff would require that a temporary one is put in its place. Again, as approved as how we want as close as possible to be the traffic circulation for the site. So this is the one area, again, this is the interface between the residential portion of the property and the property at the front, which is the commercial portion. So staff, in speaking with the developer, one of our main questions, because a change from the original phasing plan where they were going to use Berlin Turnpike and Payne Road, actually the first plan was to use Berlin Turnpike and have Payne Road be closed off. And then due to kind of the lag with the OSTA approval, that the applicant has requested to use Payne Road as the main access. Again, Payne Road does not connect to a state road. It doesn't require the same level of OSTA approval for that connection that the Berlin Turnpike does. So in this area, staff had asked the question of how would they control the access between the residential and commercial, with the concern that Of course, a resident parking here, if they figure they could get out easier and go out onto the Berlin Turnpike and utilize that exit that or entrance, that has not been approved by OSA yet. So in discussions with the developer, the concept of putting a gate at this location, again, to prevent that access across it, to prevent residents from using the Berlin Turnpike entrance before it's been approved by OSTA. I spoke with the fire marshal actually at about 5:30 today. He contacted Chief Tromer, and verbally I was told that they are okay with the proposal of a gate being put there. That the most important thing that it would be a Knox box padlock. So that's whatever our fire department has, our master key, they would be able to open it. So again, the concern is always when you have a gate in the way, it needs to be open fast and you need to respond. So that would be pretty much their condition. Staff has prepared a whole list of potential conditions that if you're inclined, approve a partial acceptance of the site. And again, staff at this point, if the commission would like to go ahead with a partial approval of the site, that it be limited to this building one, see how things kind of work out going through. They have multiple phase plan, building one, building two, building three, which is good for the commission's information. But it would be likely that staff would recommend that building one would be the only area for partial site acceptance. And that when building two is ready, that the applicant would come back in front of you and say, okay, I'm here for a building two partial acceptance and a bond reduction as well too, because it is a $1.7 million bond, a letter of credit for the remaining site work to be done. And at this point, I would like to hand it over to the applicant to kind of discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Planner, members of the commission. My name is Eric and I'm working with Criterion Development Partners, offices in Wellesley, Massachusetts. We've made a lot of progress. The inside of the building is great. We're ready. The leasing activity has been strong. We have some issues that we need to resolve. As the Paul highlighted, we have some line striping that we need to do. We have a line striper set up towards the end of this week, beginning of next week, to put down temporary edge lines, solid edge lines. All the approved traffic signage will be installed. We have a proposed solution for access, limiting access to address the concerns with tenants moving through the commercial site. We're working collaboratively with our commercial partner, developing to the east of us. We think we have a good plan to mitigate any concerns regarding moving and construction traffic during working hours. And we have an approved detailed plan to address the fire department's concern, providing interim access between these buildings 1 and 3. We will be back for a commission in June, July, seeking similarly approval to open our second building, which is directly to the south bottom of the page, building 2. There will be interim parking, which will be turned over in that area, general area to the north of building 2, which will provide parking for both buildings 1 and 2. We've supplemented fencing, introduced some control measures to really separate the work zone. Primarily, our concern would be building 3, which is the last phase of the build up to the west there. We will have appropriate fencing, screen, really to keep that separate work zone while we occupy and finish buildings 1 and 2. Appreciate your continued support in getting us across the finish line. We've been successful with our inspections. We think that we're going to be ready part next week to hopefully have town staff come out and inspect with final approval of those conditional items to allow us to start moving people in their buildings. So, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Hoffman. Yeah, the entrance coming off Payne Road, is that still going to be used for construction after you open on building 1?
It will be used for construction. The construction workforce is parking off-site. We have arrangements in place with the general contractor to prevent employees from parking on the site. And then there will be controlled entrance through the site coming up Main Road, with deliveries being restricted between work hours of 8 o'clock and 2, I think it's 2 or 2:30. That's what we compete on. Any deliveries are going to be escorted through the site. And it should be limited, primarily to obviously the work zones for buildings 2 and 3. So we have a plan of traffic management plan in place where we're really limiting the access of construction vehicles to off-peak hours for tenants. We won't be, we're thinking probably 10 to 15 tenants for building 1. And the work hours and the hours of restriction will allow them to egress out of Main Road and then after hours when the construction crews are done. We've had some more work that was completed today along the north side of building 2 at a good concrete placement, which really finishes off that area. We're going to be bindering within the next week and a half, 2 weeks, that area as well. So that will really kind of represent the finished area, which limits work primarily building 2 on the inside of building 2, and then building 3 similarly. We're doing drywall and frame inspections and MEP inspections. So it's limited at this stage to interior work to those buildings.
That's your question, Commissioner? Any other questions, Commissioner?
Well, are we handling the conversations of Bain and the Turnpike as separate conversations? Or?
Yes, and actually we acted a little out of order on this one too, unfortunately. I went right to the second item, so that's for those following along, and noted that item 2, that this is under one item, but they're kind of intrinsically linked together just because of the site.
Great. The issues or the concerns that I have is nothing related to the progress of the project. It's all related to the Oakville rules. I have concerns with having a gated separation between the residential and the commercial. That the commercial, in theory, is going to be exiting out a non-approved entry off the turnpike that so far we've been kind of half and half using Payne Road as well as the turnpike. And then the main exit way out to Payne Road being where building 2 and building 3 are still actively in progress, that now you're building everything out that single exit. That's my only concern or hesitation I have to it. I know they've been moving very aggressively over the last few weeks now that the weather is broken. But that's my only concern, is not having that oath for approval to utilize the turnpike as a secondary egress and egress. That's all I have to stress on.
Commissioner Fox? I have none. My concern, again, and I told this to the commercial part of it, is that that's a wide mouth intersection. No traffic control there at all. So somebody coming out of here, make a left and head straight into the southbound traffic. I'd ask them to put traffic barrels up, the ribbon beam in between, channel it down to force everybody to go to the right, southbound. Haven't heard anything. I've asked Paul if he heard it. I do have concerns that, the gate is open, somebody might drive through here and go out that way there. You're going to be working during the day, so it's basically you're saying that everybody's going to leave for work and not come back until you're done. Am I correct? Would that be the assumption?
I think the majority of the 10 tenants that we're going to have are going to be leaving during those work hours. There may be some people who work from home and need to access the local, commercial sites, but it's going to be coming down in the road. I think it's intended to be exclusively, set aside for construction vehicles during the day.
Yep.
But you see my concern. We've had a lot of head-on collisions in the state recently. People making a left turn going southbound into the southbound lane or whatever it is. I'm very concerned about the turnpike right now.
Concerns with regard to introducing traffic onto the turnpike in one way during the winter. We think we have a plan that we're working through with town staff that addresses that on an interim basis, that would close the ability for us to travel through the.
So during the day, that would not be open at all.
That's correct.
And at night, it would not be open.
That's correct. Unless the fire department needs access, in which case there would be a Knox box, which is approved.
I believe also, your engineer, Matt Bruton, has his hand up and would like to add to the conversation.
Yeah, so, Mr. Commissioner, sorry, you guys are a little quiet, but I think I heard everything that was being discussed. So, just to clarify, right, obviously we do have cones. I can share the picture of what's been set up to date in terms of restricting access on the Berlin Turnpike. But just to be aware as well that the DOT, right, OSTA did provide correspondence today that, they have some minor comments, but they don't expect don't anticipate any major issues for preventing this partial opening. I asked them about that today. Obviously, they knew it. They were working very hard for us to get us something for this meeting so we could potentially move forward. In addition to that, they also did request the appropriate temporary signage in the median, which obviously you can see in this picture is still unbroken, right? To make sure that the normal signage is there now that this new driveway is constructed of the, no left turns, right turn only. So that appropriate signage, which everybody is used to seeing up and down this turnpike for areas where the median isn't broken, should be in place as well for this opening to prevent anyone from taking that left-hand turn and going in the wrong direction.
If I may, Jamie Anderson, Grossman Development Group on the commercial side. What you're seeing there is just a temporary condition as well with respect to those cones. They do have the hoops at the top that allow us to tie them all together with a, I don't know what it's called, some sort of a, not a rope, but an actual piece of plastic that ties them all together. We're trying to find those right now, and it sounds like they're about 2 weeks out before we can get more cones and the actual ties together. So that's why we just took the opportunity to throw together what we had out there. Again, it's just for construction entrance right now anyway, so it's not open to Shake Shack.
Right. I
Etc.
understand it, but like I said, on Facebook, I see people going in there writing around and stuff, they're posting on Facebook, and my concern is coming out the wrong way,
I understand that.
And, I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but I worked in the department for 41 and a half years, and my thought would be the plastic barrels with the ribbon beam in between locked in. And that way there would force the traffic to go this way.
Mhm.
I know it'd be a little more expensive maybe than the cones.
Yeah.
But at least the ribbon beam would with the delineated barrels would show the traffic has to go this way.
Yeah, we can certainly get barrels if that's what the commissioner.
Well, it's only a suggestion,
Yeah, I don't think the barrels that we found were able to be connected, but
They used to be the old traffic drums, and they had
Yeah.
two sections cut out, put the ribbon beam in, bolted together. So it will move, it's flexible, but at least it's going to give you a pattern at night.
Mhm.
That's all I was concerned with.
Yeah.
Because cones are nice, but you hit those cones and they're not gonna do anything.
Yeah.
If you hit that ribbon beam, it's gonna wake you up,
Yeah,
so to speak.
understood. And I wanted to wait until this one more time to talk to you about that and make the purchase of whatever you suggested. So we'll go with the barrels.
All right, any
With one follow-up. So with the correspondence from also, has that been received by the town yet or no?
So earlier today, an email was forwarded along. So as I understand it, so right now OSTA, it's made it through 3 out of the 5 hoops it has to jump through. I believe the ones that are left over are DOT planning and District 1. As far as going through it, it was noted that there are some minor comments, but we do not have comments haven't been received back from the other 2 divisions as far as their review of it. So there isn't really a OSTA approval in hand. From our understanding too, that I think it's going to take, a little bit for them to get back and go forward with it, get those comments a little bit back and forth. The applicant probably could give you, I know their idea of timing, but we know OSTA doesn't move necessarily quickly. They've had this for a little while, sometimes it takes them a month, the original one, just to get back with comments. That's because what I've seen in the back and forth with this. So these comments are in progress, but they haven't been issued. So as far as that, no building permits could be issued anyway without that. And that's kind of where it's sitting. So while there is a hopeful email that says, yes, we've reviewed it up to this point, and it appears that the comments are minor, there's still 2 entities out there who have not issued their comments.
So without the also approval, you can't issue even a TCO.
No.
Okay. For 3333,
Correct.
not subject to Payne Road because that is a non-required or required.
Yep. So, as far as I understand too, in talking with the town engineer, OSTA approval was not required for the approval on Payne Road entrance because it's not a state road.
I just wasn't sure with the two being tied together.
Yeah, they were approved under one site plan, and then afterwards, the properties were, or as part of it, the properties were separated. So there are two distinct parcels that we have, in the town, but they were approved under one master site plan that did have both of those entrances. Your comment regarding that concern with kind of everything being pushed out one, not being able to use the back, that's something I haven't discussed with the town engineer, yet. That was, as I said, it's come up as far as the change, it's been over the last couple of weeks that it's evolved from going, everyone using the Berlin Turnpike to then just the residential using the back portion of it. And then I met on site on Monday afternoon. And that's when we discussed the gate and what needed to happen because of, staff's concern too of traffic, residential traffic using a non-approved entrance would be an issue. That's something that we don't want to encourage and don't want to sign off on.
I think my biggest concern is it's still going to be a very active construction site with building 3 going full, ground site work to building 2 working a little closer to, fits and finishes outside, that there's still a fair amount of exterior construction traffic put in, 15 or 20 potential residents that are going to be navigating all of it that may not be acclimated to me. That's my only concern on that side of it. And that they're going to be forced to have to go all Payne Road through it all. And is there, enough access and enough for, you said you were parking off-site, contractors will be parking off-site and what, being shuttled in or?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I mean, that'll at least help to some degree, but
we recognize that we can't have anyone parking and choking down Payne Road, so it is gonna just be open for access, circulation, and no parking, no storage of materials. And we recognize your concern and acknowledge and share it with you, that they have to be separate, distinct work zones that are controlled with work gates, and the earthwork really is limited at
To
this
3,
stage. It's the phase 3, so there shouldn't be a confluence of traffic going from one phase work zone to the other. I mean, they're at different phases of their build out. So,
and 3 is actively in progress or is
Yeah.
expected to get underway?
no, it is. Yeah. Okay. So you have different trades working in that particular building, and you do the finished trades that are in building 2. So
Okay.
they're not crossing from across the road from one building to the other.
They're segregated.
Yeah.
works. Yeah, if you've got that, Paul. Because I mean, that's my only concern is just if there's
Yeah.
going to be too much going on. To be a hazard.
People sick.
And it's a perception issue for us too. You live there, you want it to feel like a finished product, right? You don't want to be driving through an active construction work zone. So we've really focused on, and we're fortunate in the sense that they are staggered starts. We're further along in building 2 than we are in 3, that they do operate like 3 separate work zones.
Right.
And we are going to make sure that we have scrim everywhere we need. We're going to have the poly, water filled barriers to really delineate and make a strong work zone so that when you're driving through there as a tenant, you just feel like you're driving through a road, really. That's the goal. That's what we're pushing for.
And you're anticipating the top when?
Top coat?
Yeah. Or are you going to leave everything in binder and do everything at one time?
Yeah. And that's building 3 turnovers is September. But building 2 binder by the end of April, the north and south side will be done. We'll have binder on the north side down within the next week. We can have, depending on the weather.
So this will give you a little bit of an idea. As you can see, this is building 2, where you have, structures that are still being stored behind here. And you can see building 3, again, all this would have to be cleaned up. Everything that you can see kind of here on site.
This was taken a little earlier, I think, right?
Yeah, this was taken on the 25th.
We-
Taken on picking on Monday. This is when I was out on site on Monday, so you can see kind of the work. So this is in front of you is the dumpster pad, which they've informed me will be poured on the sooner side than later. Yeah, you can see building 3 under construction. And this kind of gives you an idea too about kind of the level of you know, the earthwork that's going on, structures being installed, I think still everything kind of going on in that area. This kind of shows you building 1, that's building 3. So I think, yeah, it might be, because here's where you have your interface right here. So the question will be, you know, what does the final product kind of look like? You know, it depends on how the commission feels about how the plan's being put in front of them. I know the applicant is asking you for approval tonight. If there are questions that you have regarding how it's going to look, or you know, because you discussed about the amount of traffic that was going in, I don't know if you can actually express what's the level of work that's going on. Is it typically, because when I've been out there, most of what I've seen that's been moved around site is typically loaders, and they're actually like, you know, basically forklift loaders. There's certain terminology for that one. There you go, telehandlers that are moving items around that are stored off to the side over here from 2 to 3. So that's most of the movement you have on site. I haven't really seen the dump truck in a while on site because they're kind of moving around what they have. But if the applicant can kind of share some information about what level of work is going on, that would be, I think,
Absolutely.
important.
This is actually a really good photo because it kind of demonstrates what I'm trying to articulate, which is the edge of pavement along the left side there by the excavator, if you would, where that Jersey barrier is. We're going to be installing a series of those poly Jersey barriers that are water filled with fence panels above it. There will be 2 separate gates, which will allow access into that particular work zone with scrim above it. And it's really going to define that roadway going around the corner by the dumpster there. So when you're coming out of building 1, which is the upper right there, you're going to be coming down what feels like a road. No different than if you were driving downtown somewhere, perhaps. The work that's being done to the left by the excavator, the majority of that is site-related work. You know, they're finalizing storm drainage, installing storm drainage and things like that. To the right of the picture, we're prepping, and you saw some of the other photos where they were prepping the binder course. Sorry, not the binder course, but the dense grade, doing finish grade, getting ready for pavement, and that will be turned over as parking within the next 2 weeks in April. We really are making a concerted effort to clean up the site and make sure that each of the work zone have the materials that are being utilized in that particular side of the work. So work zone 3 will be separate from work zone 2. And that's how deliveries are going to be coming. The delivery for work zone 2, it's going to go straight to work zone 2, and that's where it gets dropped. It doesn't get picked up by the what do you call them now? The Terra loaders, the telehandlers. We call them the lulls, I think. But we're not going to have construction vehicles like that moving materials from one side to the other. It's really going to be managed and restricted to kind of like a just-in-time delivery. You need your drywall going straight to the building, and it's going to be between the hours of 8 and 2:30, and that's it. It's going to be supervised with personnel who are managing, make sure that, you know, everyone's paying attention and the tenants really aren't interrupted by it and impacted as little as possible. If they need to stop, they'll be there to manage that traffic. So there you can see it's a good photo looking at building 1 to the left, building 2 to the right. That area, that's where we place sidewalk today up along the length of the building. And the next phase is binder, and then the landscaper has been mobilized, but that's, you know, completely different, kind of a softer touch, softer feel. So that's kind of where we are with it. Definitely distinct different work zones requiring different materials, and it comes down to managing the site, and we think we have a good plan to do that.
One quick question. After you put the binder course on, you're going to stripe and put the shoulder lines in. Are you going to have some type of commitment to sweep the road periodically to make sure there's no dust on it and people can still see the shoulder line?
Absolutely.
Right. I didn't see, hear you mention it.
You know, and especially with this site, what we've discovered is there's lately been a lot of wind that's been whipping through here. But within a month's period of time, all of the paving around building 2 will be bindered, so that I think, you know, obviously Jamie on the commercial side, they're all paved out, so the only area where we should be getting, you know, a significant amount, or not significant, but potential amount of dust blowing, which we have to manage, is on the zone 3 for building 3, and that's an ongoing process.
I just want to make sure that the road is clearly
Yep.
defined and delineated, so people can see, you know, especially with dust and dirt, you know, white lines don't stand out that much.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for the commissioners?
Just more of a statement than a question. I have hesitancy to prove it in its current state, even for a temporary CO. For right now, I think we're literally at the 2-yard line. Were we trying to think of the schedule? When's our next regular meeting?
2 weeks,
10th, I think.
April 10th.
Is it likely to have the OSTA issues resolved in that time frame based on the conversations that you guys have had back and forth since then?
I would let Matt chime in on that one. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I believe it would. I mean, obviously, I think that they did put this email in writing to us at our request based on the meeting tonight. Obviously, we want this site to operate safely with Payne Road and with the Berlin Turnpike, and they wouldn't do that and put that in writing, that they don't anticipate this causing problems for a partial open. They wouldn't have said that in writing for us to share with you guys if they thought that was going to be a problem. So I believe it's okay in terms of that if you wanted to take action tonight. But I do believe that with the head of OSTA coming back next week from vacation and the minor comments that we're anticipating from them, that we'd have a more solid thing from them before the next meeting.
And just a little bit more color, we did meet today with District 1, actually on a separate item, some drainage issues down by the Best Buy widening. In that picture you saw that we shared before, that was all of us kind of meeting. I know that they do have one comment. It was verbally told to us today that they want to make sure that when the median is broken, that we do provide a Jersey barrier, obviously to make sure that nobody's unsafely driving in between, the northbound side to the southbound side or onto our property. So that made sense to us, obviously, no problem with that. I think that's the only comment we're going to get from District 1. Matt, I don't know if you're aware of any other comments coming from planning. Was that the 5th person that we're still with?
Planning is the 5th one. Yeah, and I don't have a sense of if they'll have any comments.
And again, in timing, your schedule, in theory, in 2 weeks would put us right around final prep for binder for building 2 as well, or just prior to?
Yeah, final binder around building 2. We're gonna be paving weather depending, obviously.
Right.
In April. So, well, what we're looking to do is turn over that parking lot, mid-April. We have tenants, leases looking to move in, second week, end of the first week, second week of April. So, what I think we're asking for tonight, recognizing the concerns that the town has, as do we, in conditionally approving the partial C of O for building 1 with a gate in the interim period until we can resolve the OSTA question, whether or not we're going to be allowed to circulate. In the absence of that, we have a plan, a traffic management plan that allows us to circulate, the 10 or 15 tenants down through Payne Road, just bifurcating that traffic movement altogether and separating the 2 projects until we're ready to open it, which with OSTA, we don't know, and that's the wild card for us. And that's the concern and why we think, a conditional approval might be the way to address that, with the understanding that we can't open that gate until we have the final approval in place, and that we're going to be back before you in June to have a similar discussion for building 2. So we're not introducing more tenants until we've had the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, that's my only concern, it's just being limited and restricted to just use of Payne Road only. And if Host is down to the last two, and one likely was addressed today with District One, and it just leaves one left to go.
Which one?
My initial would be conditional upon postal approval. Now, if that's going to hamper them beyond our next meeting date, then I would be more amicable to the control gate. I just see that control gate just being a problem.
You're saying table until next week?
Or to issue it conditionally based on OSTA's approval, should that come prior to our next meeting. Does that make sense? Does it not make sense?
Yeah, I think effectively it kind of does the same thing. And I can share too that we have received draft letters of credit from both sites. They are under review by the town attorney and the town manager. I don't anticipate them completing the review this week, and we'll see what happens next week regarding timing. Regarding the review of that. Again, as far as the
One other thing to be conditional.
yeah, as far as the order of operation goes, normally it goes, okay, the TPZ knows the amount to be bonded, knows that the site can be conditionally approved for a portion, a conditional acceptance for a portion of the site, and then it goes to the town manager to resolve the final bond. You know, they don't come to the commission with the actual bond form, and it's not signed by the commission, it's signed by the manager. And it's the manager and the town engineer who work out all the final details.
And that's punching down literally day by day at this point, am I correct?
It's correct, yeah. Unfortunately, we haven't been as building on a daily basis, so we're just sticking with the original amount just to make it easier.
Right.
Any questions? No. Commissioner Fox?
No questions.
Commissioner Hoffman? Yeah, what's your pleasure, Commissioner?
We're essentially doing it the same way either way. So do we just table this until our next meeting, or do we do it conditional upon acceptance of letter of credit being approved by the town manager and town attorney, as well as the OSTA giving approval for the conditions as they are being presented?
Yeah.
Let's put it to a vote. Those want to table this?
No move.
Oh, sorry, good.
But we just mark out the steps of what the difference between the two sort of portions, what it results if we go with this.
Yeah,
and we
so,
motion today,
yeah,
and-
staff, you know, if inclined, staff prepared, it's basically a small book report.
It's a
It's a
lot of
page,
things,
it
right.
is. But a lot of it is clarifying what's approved, clarifying the bond amount, making traffic control installation a requirement, inspection by the town planner and town engineer with the certain items done that are listed, modifications to the site turnover plan with things that we've discussed with the applicant as well, and kind of where it goes from there. You know, little things that need to be changed. It does have the gate in there. So if you wanted to move in the direction of OSTA approval, it would be removing the gate provision and then substituting an OSTA approval condition for it, which essentially pushes it out further. It's a matter of if the applicant thinks that it'll be back next week, which may or may not be likely as far as OSTA, that's one thing. If it's back in 2 weeks and then the applicant has a chance to tighten up the site, do this, and, you know, get that from the commission that says, okay, this is just me thinking that you're okay with the general plan, but would like to see more detail to actually see it. Because it is a little difficult to see. I've been out there multiple times on the site. I can get it in concept of where it's going to go. And I've been able to walk the site with the applicant well to actually explain what's going where and understand it. But yeah, from just pictures and from a plan, it's a little more difficult to understand without it being in place and seeing what level of protection is there. So if you were to add in the OSTA one, effectively, it pretty much tables it till that's done and both sites will be resolved kind of together. And that's something I don't know if the applicant's open to, or if thinking that waiting to the next meeting till more items are resolved and again, giving the clear indication that this plan is good going forward and just tightening it up, that's something I would recommend discussing with the applicant.
And I think that's a pretty fair assessment to, I think, where we're at. I understand you have tenants that are literally ready to move in, Monday, if they've been allowed,
Yeah,
or early part of the month.
early part of the month.
If we're talking about the tenth being our next meeting and the OSTA issues have been resolved, or at least there's some final clarity to it. I mean, they've had it now for how long? They've had it for a while.
They've had it since last fall, yeah.
That's the part that's concerning to us, is we don't control that.
Right.
And if we can address your concern, which is really limiting circulation through the sites safely to ours,
Yeah.
just our traffic alone. And I think Matt can probably speak to the number of trips we're talking about. It's not a lot. And given the site constraints with the embankment on either side, I think to Paul's point, once you see it in person, it's very hard to get through the site. You're not going to be driving across the curb.
Yeah, I've actually driven a fire truck through
so
the
you've
site
seen it.
on a fire alarm call, so
Yeah.
familiar with it. And that was my main concern.
Yeah.
That we're not choking it up too much. But if you're saying you're gonna be off-site with your contractors parking and, coming in based on what they need, I think that'll alleviate a lot of that. Again, my inclination is either to specifically put in the OSTA approval in there, or just to simply table it and say that the rest of it appears to be acceptable until the tenth, which is 2 weeks. Anybody else?
Mr. Fox, you happy with that?
I think, yeah, I'd be happy with what the minor.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Which option?
To simply table it. So,
Simply
yeah,
table it.
that's. I think we're all in agreement that we're literally on the 2-yard line, and if we can just get that last push, that next week or next meeting, you guys will be on the way.
So if we could, make it a condition of the OSTA approval, make a
It's
condition.
better conditional that way for you.
I think regardless, right, we're gonna be back on the tenth if it doesn't happen, but if it happens prior to the tenth,
That you can go.
we can go. I think.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah. Yeah,
Gives you greater flexibility.
yeah, if that's offered, that's fine.
All right, let's do that.
Thank you.
Okay, need a motion?
We've got the conditional approval, just bear with us for just a minute, Mr. Chair.
So where would it start?
Yep, and it's clear that this is for the residential side.
96-100 Payne Road.
Yeah.
Yep, and that, if you're looking at your, conditions, it would be, so if you look at, 5A, that's where it talks about the access control shall be installed, the connection between the two properties. So that would be removing pretty much the whole section A, and then substituting that, subject to.
I think they're okay with if you're okay with the OSTA approvals kind of in there.
Yeah, it's already in there as a
I don't
second
know if that's
sentence.
enough.
Yeah, that was really meant for, the gate gets installed now. Once OSTA approval is in place, the gate gets removed, so they wouldn't have to come back to you to remove the gate. That's how this is structured. So by that structure, it would be not having the gate, but it would be, it's probably actually striking that section.
Changing B to A.
Yeah, and then just having that, and then adding an item 10.
No, strike 5A,
5 alpha,
and then B becomes A.
subject to.
And then we're working up the last one right now, I think.
So it could be subject to OSTA approval for the Berlin Turnpike right in, right out traffic pattern. Sounds about right.
Is that what it is, or is the exit?
Matt, what
Matt, if you wouldn't mind telling us, sort of the nomenclature that, that OSTA was using for the intersection, I guess. What do they call it?
Yeah, so the orientation of traffic that's being reviewed right now and that email that was referenced with what was sent over Paul today, what the orientation that they're reviewing right now is full access on Payne Road and the right out on the Berlin Turnpike.
Which is essentially saying the same.
So again, subject to OSTA approval for full access on Payne Road and right out on Berlin Turnpike.
Correct.
Approval for full access on Payne Road, right out on the Berlin Turnpike.
And right out on Berlin
And-
Turnpike. Yep, and if that doesn't happen, then they may likely be back on the 10th for modification of this approval.
But at least if it does occur between now and then, it will allow you guys.
Yeah. So yeah, and then other than 5A and B would be A, but I know there's a lot of things here that kind of specify a lot of stuff to kind of very clearly define what's being approved, but all those conditions, town staff would still recommend.
Okay, so we're gonna table this until they either get approval from OSA or we have the next meeting.
No, we're gonna.
Mr. Chair, I think we would make the motion.
Yeah.
Revised motion
Okay,
Yeah.
that will essentially
All right.
accomplish what we're taking.
Yeah.
It's-
Okay.
Same.
Mr. Fox?
Yeah.
And again,
Okay,
Motion to approve.
yeah, motion to approve with conditions. Motion to approve the partial site plan acceptance at 96 to 100 Payne Road, subject to the following conditions. One, the partial approval is limited to the building one site turnover plan from 3/22 to 2024, prepared by BL Companies, subject to modifications to be approved by town staff. Two, a bond shall be posted in the amount of $1,703,763 as estimated by the developer and approved by the town engineer, subject to the requirements of Newington zoning regulation section 7.3. Three, traffic control shall be installed per plan, permanent or temporary, including temporary striping of the binder course of the Payne Road access drive, subject to final approval of the town engineer. Four, the approval is subject to inspection and approval of site conditions by the town planner and town engineer prior to the issuance of a CO. The following items shall be addressed prior to inspection. A, binder course and sidewalks swept for areas to be occupied. B, protruding conduit and trip hazards need to be addressed. C, completion of the fire access drive subject to approval by the fire marshal. D, construction material shall be moved behind a fence and shall not be stored within the area of partial acceptance. E, installation of all fencing, gates, and barriers. The building one site turnover plan shall be modified in the following manner. The fence line along the access drive to Payne Road shall be extended along the southwest portion of the road with final placement to be approved by the town planner. 6, no parking along the Payne Road entrance drive and no contractor parking in areas open to residents. B, residents will use Payne Road for exit and entrance until the commercial site is granted partial approval. 8, contractor will limit construction deliveries between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. 9, construction deliveries will have a contractor coordinating and providing access safely through the site. 10, subject to OSTA approval for full access on Payne Road and right out onto the Berlin Turnpike.
so staff would only recommend probably the striking of number 7. Because that really referred to the kind of the proposal of only using Payne Road.
Strike number
As
7.
read, striking number 7.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was seconded by
Fox.
Fox. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Awesome.
So that was that, and I don't know if you want to talk about so So that was the residential portion. The commercial portion, again, we just got kind of the OSTA, that notice today, regarding that they're getting closer to it. I do not have a motion prepared just by, it was received today. So I think the applicant would like to either ask for it or is waiting till the 10th. Okay.
I mean, my preference obviously would be to have a condition, same number 10, that you had just spoken to on the residential side. I'm not sure if it's any different than that at this point. But yeah, I'll obviously wait for the same certificate from OSTA. So if that is possible, that would be my ask for the board.
Well, Mr. Chair. Yes, just my only question is, have you had an opportunity to review existing site conditions required versus what you would need for a temporary CO to be issued outside of OSTA, or you haven't even touched it?
So we reviewed it and we were the OSTA was the waiting pattern. So when I went out to their site, I focused on the residential portion of it with that change of access. So that's changed a little bit. The condition of the site is pretty good. I think there are a couple of modifications to the plans that we talked about previously, additional areas with gates that need to be, fenced off areas that are under construction, reviewing the site for all, wedging, actually shimming, wedging, different term, shimming of all the structures and sidewalks and, ramps and everything on that. A lot of that is done. But I do not have a comprehensive list in front of me right now. So it could be, I wonder if I can bring up that plan, but yeah, no, I don't have it immediately in front of me right now. So it could be based upon if you were inclined to do it. Again, it's OSTA approval and subject to required modifications of the phasing plan. Again, we have to bring up that phasing
We
plan.
don't even have bond numbers for your part of the project.
We do.
We do, actually, yeah, we've submitted all the bond requirements. We have, yep, it's roughly $700,000 to finish off. And again, like you said, we are
Punching
it down every day, yeah.
But unfortunately, it's just when it was received today and I was in a few
Yeah.
meetings today, there wasn't time to come up with that list.
Yeah, it doesn't make a big difference to me, so tabling is fine and at this point, so if that's.
I would just respectfully ask that we table it, just so we're not rushing the plan.
I would like to do that.
I don't see anything that would be, otherwise, if we can get those issues resolved by the tenth, that we should do. And you'll have an opportunity to update everything, hopefully be a much shorter punch list at that point.
We'll table that portion until the next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Just planner petitions for public hearing schedule.
Okay, so there are,
I'm good.
you're getting it up. You share it. Got a lot of things open. Got it.
Okay, sorry about that.
Anyone watching along, I'm sorry for the fast advancing photos. Okay, so there is one petition for a freestanding sign that has been around for a little bit. We finally have the survey showing it on the property. So again, we expect that to advance at the next meeting. Staff does not have any concerns. Again, it just needs to go through a public hearing regarding freestanding signs. Again, at some point, staff would like to discuss with the commission regarding our need for a public hearing on every freestanding sign and whether, if it follows the regulations, but again, that's another modification potentially for the future. The re-subdivision at 250 Cedarwood Lane, that actually says and 2295. That was corrected in the public hearing notice. This was previously 250 Cedarwood 2295. Properties were joined together. They want to split them apart. A presentation will be done at the next meeting. Again, a petition for a rear lot and a subdivision at 204 to 208 Church Street. Again, these are, it's an existing two-family, they're all, actually, both of these are re-subdivisions. But, this is, again, these are all one lot to two. Both subdivisions are one lot to two. So those will been scheduled. The public hearing notice has been published. We'll be back in our normal home in council chambers on the 10th. and we'll be holding the public hearing there.
All right, Mr. Planner, you have a town planner report or?
Yes, so current land use, we keep that on there. Again, it's on the agenda. People can always click on it, see what applications are out there. And then the next item.
Okay.
So the next item, I did mention to the commission that I would be discussing more items on cannabis. Unfortunately, a lot of this item didn't make it into the packet, so you're seeing it for the first time. So I'm not expecting any, true blue answers tonight, but these are items to consider. And actually for us to kind of move forward, because as I noticed, I do have a moratorium ready if the commission chooses to use it. Again, it hasn't been published, it's not submitted, it is ready, it's gone, I'm teeing it up just in case the commission would like to go that route. But so the main thing, there's a couple items with the cannabis regulations in Newington that I would like to bring up. The first one is just kind of in general. So what we permit production facilities for medical, adult use cannabis cultivator for adult use, micro cultivators, retailers, adult use cannabis retailer, hybrid retailers, and medical marijuana dispensary facilities. So those are our permitted uses. The items that aren't included in the Newington zoning regulations that if we're looking at cannabis and thinking about the options there are delivery services that are out there. Again, the delivery service, what they typically do is they pick it up, drop it off. They don't typically keep it in their actual place of business. It's very controlled to how that works, but that is a very specific related use that if someone said, I want to open a delivery service and it's for cannabis, it's not included in our regulations. There's food and beverage manufacturers. We do not have that as part of our uses as well. Whether it would be considered a typical one, I have not actually had that much experience with food and beverage manufacturers. Production facilities I have visited. When I was regulating it in a previous municipality, I went and visited them. I have not had the chance to visit a food and beverage manufacturer. If the commission was inclined to include that as an option for our industrial landowners out there to potentially reuse a building, it's something that I would like to visit and actually see what's the impact, what's the odor. I generally know what the odor is for production facilities. That is, you can smell it on the road going by. We all have, there's certain areas on the highways where there are production facilities nearby. I know one in Massachusetts that I drive by when I'm seeing family that I smell it every time I drive by it. But it depends on how the facility is put together, odor control plans, and go from there. Product packager is a very similar type of thing as well. They're not growing, but they are bringing it in, packaging it. Most producers package their own, but there are cases where there are just product packagers that are out there who are doing, individual single use, things like that aren't done at a larger facility. And then there's transporter. Transporter we may really not need to have as a use. It's in there specifically under the regulations under the state as a specific cannabis use. Again, this is someone just picking up from one facility, dropping off at the other. We may really not want to regulate that and just say, okay, you're a car service at that point, or is that something we want to regulate? It's just good to understand what these uses are. And again, transporters typically will not have that product be brought back to where their main garage is. They're bringing it from point A to point B is the plan. I would want to look in that a little more just to make sure transporters aren't taking expired product or where they're doing it, just to figure out how the logistics work. It's a little more research, but here are 4 uses that we don't have in our regulations that if we're reviewing it and if we're looking at to revise our regulations, we might as well look at the other opportunities that are out there, say we don't want them, or maybe we do want them. Again, a food and beverage manufacturer may be an opportunity that if it doesn't have the same level of odor as some other as growing facilities, and it'd be good to understand that could potentially be a good use for some of the industrial areas that are a little away from residential. But again, not a full grow facility, but it's someone who's packaging seltzers, who's making baked goods. They have a lot of different options that are out there in the market. So what I also wanted to do is kind of bring up and show you, compare and contrast our liquor store regulations to our cannabis sales regulations. So the zones you can see where liquor stores are permitted, business zone, business town center, Berlin Turnpike, planned development, commercial development, industrial, and public land. It actually has a good amount of zones that are that for cannabis sales, it's planned development and business Berlin Turnpike, and then for medical dispensaries, it's in the industrial. So for the separation requirements, you can see that our cannabis sales are 500 door to door between locations, and our liquor stores range between 1,500 feet in the business zone, down to 500 feet again in those PD and business Berlin Turnpike zones. And again, on our liquor stores, we have a 500-foot radius of any part of the lot used for a college, school, church, or hospital. So we do actually have a distance requirement separation from either you call them certain uses, protected uses, whatever terminology you would like to use. But for liquor stores, we have a separation distance of 500 feet. With cannabis sales, we just have a no co-location with residential businesses, residential uses. So there isn't a separation for cannabis sales for those certain uses or sensitive uses, however you'd like to frame it. So again, this is really hard to read. I'm going to zoom in, but we're working. This is a draft map. Again, planning for permitting uses. So this is where cannabis retailers are 3 existing cannabis retailers, 2 that are built, 1 that has an approval, who's going through finalizing their state process. So as you can see, first I'll look at the northern half of Newington. What I've did is kind of highlight where potential sites where retailers could be put. Again, this will have to be revised a little. The area of 550 Cedar Street obviously has residential on it. So we couldn't co-locate in that one, nor would they probably want to. But we have to revise a couple areas, but you can see there are certain areas through town, the more distant planned development zones that are scattered where it is a permitted use. And then you can see along the Berlin Turnpike with the existing fine fettle to the north. And then in the middle is the more recently approved. And then you have Zen Leaf all the way at the bottom, which is built out. And the distance between those uses right now, between the recently approved one and fine fettle is 5,150 feet. And between the recently approved and Zen Leaf is 2,700 feet. So that just gives you a concept of how far these are apart when we're looking at distance regulations, if you want to look at distance regulations. As you see between these 2 uses, there really isn't that much opportunity. These are large lots that are controlled by the DOT. It wouldn't really be there anyway, and this radius actually does touch the lot. So, and those would likely be excluded. But as you can see, there are other opportunities within the PD zone and the business Berlin Turnpike zone that are 500 foot is the only real requirement between the uses themselves. So what I've done is the same map, and you can see all the residential zones that are within Newington. So you can see, Newington has a lot of residential zones. So we are primarily residentially zoned for land use. You can see most of these, except for out on Fen Road, abut residential areas. Same thing.
Is there any way you can forward us a copy of all this?
Absolutely, yep.
Go through it in advance. I just got.
Oh, no.
We started.
And that's why I prefaced the start of this speech with this is. Yes. Yep, that is absolutely the plan.
And one thing I've, in a couple of those zones that Paul pointed out, like in the TOD and in the center of town where Keeney is, those both have the potential to hold residential as well by special permit. They're just not zoned that way.
Mhm.
And so the chairman, to include all the definitions of the food and beverage and the transporters and everything, in a little more detail.
Yep, absolutely. And I can even just, yep. And what I can do is even just at first, just share this slide deck. It's what's being presented. It's all out there. It's all recorded, which is good too. And then I'll work towards more information. Again, my goal tonight is to present kind of this information. It is a lot to digest, but to get first impression questions. So next time I can have focus my research and my work towards answering, questions.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Commissioner Fox and Commissioner Meyer remember when we first passed the cannabis for the medical, there was a distance and it wasn't from door to door. It was actually property line to property line. And, you mentioned on the liquor store, property line to property line, and some are door to door. You gotta let's try to get concise here. Let's either all go property line to property line or door to door. But you can't keep, in my opinion, you just can't keep flipping back and forth. And that's one of the issues that I have is that, when you get too close to a residential area, whether it's selling, especially, cannabis, people have an expectation if they live in a residential area, they want to be able to have some peace and quiet, and be able to not have stuff, commercial stuff right in their own backyard. So that's what I'm looking at is let's get everything equal. So either we use lot to lot, corner lot to corner lot, like we do on churches, or door to door, you said on some liquor stores, or lot to lot on some other liquor stores. It's all over the place. I mean, and like I said, I was on here when they first passed this. We had 1,000 feet. Okay, and I can remember exactly when the first one went in, and I think the attorney was John Kelly.
Yeah.
And they were measuring corner lot to corner lot. I'm not calling this all over the place. So let's try to get, in my opinion, try to get something consistent. All our regulations should be consistent.
Yep, and I'd like to add to, you can note in the thing that was included in the staff report, I kind of did go through the history of what happened with the zoning regulations, and it went through. And yes, in 2018, the amendment removed 1,000-foot distance requirement for dispensaries from specific uses such as places of worship and from property zoned for single-family residential uses. So that was removed in 2018. And then following it, the 500-foot separation distance was added when the adult use law came into effect, but only between those dispensaries, and nothing was added as far as residential.
Any other questions, Commissioner Meyer?
Yeah.
Commissioner Fox, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right. You're right, Mr. Chairman. I remember when doing the medical marijuana for Fine Federal, between Commissioner Woods and a couple of others, I think that back, we were wondering, they'll go to an angle, go this or that. And so I think Mr. Chairman has a good point there. And I don't know how the rest of the commission feels. I mean, we have a slight majority here, but I saw some peculiarities, like, some difference between the cannabis and the liquor. And I would like to find out how you guys feel and girls about maybe coordinating them, putting them on the same level. Like, we got the liquor store needing 500 feet between them and a church. The same thing should go for the cannabis. Because I don't know how you really feel about cannabis use, or how much more addictive or this, that, the other thing, but I think we should look into that.
Right. Yep.
Commissioner Meyer?
Just one quick follow-up. Well, I can't remember if it was in front report last month or if I just heard it between then and now. Is either Bloomfield or there's a group of towns that are getting together that just are trying to get control of this before it becomes uncontrollable?
There has been numerous amendments through the CROG that are listed on there, and I actually have a separate spreadsheet that I started going through all of them. And more recently, actually, it might have actually been last night.
Yeah.
Or West Hartford. West Hartford had an amendment, but it was a butter-driven amendment. So we'll, who knows where that will go. But the butter-driven amendment tried to, I think, put a 5,000-foot between the uses and everything like that. That might not go forward, but they're looking at it. And Bloomfield was the other one who was really looking at it because they were getting production facilities and that. So there was discussion in the paper of whether they were going to go for a moratorium, whether they were just going to revise their regulations, but they're looking at revising regulations. It is, I think, happening across multiple communities in the state right now, that everyone's taking a second look at their regulations. Some have lessened it a little. For example, and I do have a sheet that kind of talks about separation distance. East Hartford, for example, I looked at one of their older regulations and their current regulations. They strengthened some distance requirements and then removed some others. So everyone has been slightly working it based upon what has come into the community, what they see potentially coming to the community, and how they would like it to go. So there is a lot of activity.
I mean, that's my other concern is that at this point, you know, I don't believe there are any applications currently pending or anything that's coming through the door, but you know, we have had 3 just in the short time that it has become legalized for sale, and I'm questioning if we shouldn't pursue the possibility of a moratorium in the interim to try to get a handle on all the aspects of it, because you had brought up some tonight that I wasn't even thinking. You know, I'm thinking, you know, retail, you know, cultivation and transportation, but you actually brought more than I was even thinking. And before the opportunity presents that somebody is coming forward with an application that we never considered before, to try to get a pause to look, and again, to see what, you know, what the ramifications are gonna be based on the 3 retailers that we already have. To my knowledge, traveling around as much as I do, I cannot think of any other municipality in Hartford County, it might even go beyond that, of having 3 retail facilities in such close proximity to each other. Anywhere that I can think of. And I travel a fair amount, and I don't want to be that spot. I don't want to be that stop.
Right.
And I think that might be something to consider, Mr. Chair.
Yep, and actually what I can do then, and I will take that as a
I
cue.
know, Manchester East Hartford, somebody had applied for a cannabis drive-through.
East Hartford.
East Hartford.
Yep, and there are certain, that's another item. There are certain regulations out there that specifically say no drive-through facilities. There are other regulations that said drive-through facilities shall be included according to subject blank. And they do permit them. You know, that is the East Hartford. There are other ones who have that in their regulations. So that's something to consider as well. Right now, if someone came in looking for a drive-through, I'd be like, well, no, drive-throughs are not permitted as that, but you never know how creative someone can get.
So I think you have a pretty good direction as to which way to go.
So actually, I have more for you.
Oh, okay.
Lots more.
Oh, yeah. When I research a little bit. Now I want to talk about production. So that's retail. That's one aspect of it. Production, the restrictions are 100 feet from a church, temple, or other place used for religious worship, public building, private recreation area, school, playground, park, or childcare facility. So we do have a 100-foot requirement for production. But again, production, the impacts of it are potentially larger due to the odors, and there isn't as much trucking with production compared to a normal, like a warehouse or something that I've seen. Most of it's vans. There are some materials, but it's primarily the odor is the main concern with production. And again, it's 100 feet from any property that is zoned for single family residential as a permitted use. So it would not permit, it would not exclude something that, for example, 3333, that had, if something was, not there would be something next to it, but that would not be an exclusion area on there because it's not single family zone. You can't have a single family house in those zones. And again, no co-location in residential buildings or with other cannabis. So again, same type of maps that I put together where you can see highlighted the partial areas, and I'll send this out to you as well. But you can see it's primarily focused up by Hartford Ave, the Balf, whether someone did a conglomeration of parcels up there. You can see up off of Day Street, kind of in that area. Those are potentially eligible. And then you can see some along Fenn, and then some to the south of Cedar Street, all could fit within those regulations as potential, including the parcel that's right next to the Berlin Turn, right next to Route 9 in that area. This map also already has the ones that are excluded for residential. That's why you see a lot of these parcels aren't highlighted and aren't shaded in and buffered for those sensitive uses as well. So to the south, there aren't as many locations due to residential and due to not having as much industrial zone land in the south of Newington. Again, you can see potentially right along Stam Road, kind of in that area is a potential under our current regulations. And typically these parcels right here would be too small for production use, but you know, we would be going forward and looking forward, and most of them are not really developable kind of in that area. So that's production. Again, this is just showing you those residential zones, and you can see how they exclude some of the industrial land. Same thing in the south. So this is going to be hard to read. But what I did, along with, there's actually a good article I should send along to you too from the Connecticut chapter of the American Planning Association. It was last year that they wrote that someone went through and looked at all the zoning regulations at the time. Now that's a year ago. They've changed dramatically. When I looked at that, many of these were different. But I kind of wanted to give you a concept of the separation for different type of uses. For production and retail, it's everywhere from 200 feet to 1,000 feet from a place of worship. And these are in each individual town that went through. And as I went through some towns zoning regulations were potentially in worse shape than our own. When it kind of transferred over to medical, there's a lot of artifacts left over. And that's another reason for us to look at our regulations and just kind of holistically look at them and say, okay, instead of just adding on as we've done and look through it, okay, what do we need to change and what new uses do we potentially need to look for? And for separation for other cannabis establishment, it's everywhere from 500 where we're at, or for example, Bristol has no requirement. For Bristol, for example, retail and production is 250 feet from a certain use group and no other requirements for separation. You have Meriden, which I was in before, where 500 for the retail, but 2,500 from another cannabis establishment. And it kind of goes through that list. So it's very different. The key thing about this is it's everywhere from nothing to, for Farmington is 5,000 feet, and that's left over from the medical. But yeah, they had a 5,000 foot distance between those two. So it is really across the board. Most are really between that 500 on the low end, and that's where we are between uses, and about that 1,000 to 1,500. But then again, most do have some residential. We have it for production, but no retail separation from that. But again, New Britain has 100 foot in a weird way along the same street. They kind of did it in a different way. Retail and production in Farmington is 500 feet away from residential property lines. Plainville is 200 feet away from zoned, or 100 feet containing a residence if it wasn't zoned for that. And then again, some don't have it, but Bloomfield, again, production is 300 feet away, and they might be looking at that regulation, as we know, going forward. So I'll send this along to you. But the key thing is it's scattered. It's across the board in Connecticut right now, kind of scattered what you have. And some have very strict regulations and some don't. So it's something for us to consider. And that's kind of what I wanted to show you, how far the existing ones are apart, that if you're considering distances, you kind of know how our current layout is, and potentially for not only for potential concentration in an area, but for spreading it apart and not just having them just in one area. Because if they're in just one area, everyone's traveling to that one spot. It's not really providing any more access for anyone else across. If one was far further south, it might provide access to customers who are further south, who may be walking, who may be something like that. Hopefully Krog works on on that study. In a couple of years, we have a good idea of what the Berlin Turnpike could look at. Because as we know, residential uses, Newington and Berlin have been moving into the Berlin Turnpike area. So other than that, that's that last little thing. So I've gotten some items to kind of look forward to. Again, looking at that door-to-door versus property line, and also looking at how it relates to other communities. Because the comment regarding, like, are we the only one with 3 right now, and how the dispersion, there is a map regarding that of what's out there. Might not be really, it doesn't get the newest approvals, but it does have a decent amount of approvals. So I can bring that up.
I'm curious to see
Yep.
what that is.
So again, that's in a nutshell what I've been looking at. I'll get you copies of it. If there are any other certain things you would like me to look into for next meeting and have any other answers or research, I'd be happy to do so.
Well, like I said, well, I'd like to make everything the same, whether it be liquor stores or distribution or whatever. Is you can't have one building measuring from door to door, another building measuring property line to property line. So let's make, I'd like to see them all consistent. I don't know, how does the commission feel? Commissioner Fox?
I'd like to also, but while you were just speaking, I was thinking, we're talking on, there's certain instances where you really can't do door to door. Okay, for instance, like you're gonna say door to door on you can't do it at a condo association. You can't, but even churches,
Right.
you're gonna go door to door when really, the outside areas of a church are used for picnics and things, people may be exposed. So that's gonna take a lot of thought.
Well, that's why I was suggesting property line to property line. Commissioner Hoffman?
I've been made up my mind yet.
Okay. Commissioner Meyer?
No, nothing further.
Commissioner Pasquale?
If,
Okay.
you could potentially create some nonconformities with the liquor, the ones that have 100 feet, if you increase it to 500. So that's the only thing you may want to consider.
All right, we'll move forward to the next meeting, Paul.
Yep. And I think that the question will be, kind of moving forward. So, whether there's some talk about whether a moratorium is something you're looking at or not. The key thing is I need to be able to publish it and everything, do it per the statutes before. So, next meeting, it wouldn't be ready for that. It could be ready for the meeting after that, but I would have to publish it before next meeting. So if it's something that, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's-
The table would be on next meeting.
Yep. Again, yeah, it's
That's confabulated on what we're thinking of, that's another.
yeah, as I said, I do my best to always be prepared for eventualities, so it's there, but again, I'm not pushing that issue of pushing it forward right now. It's just understanding of where the commission is at. So again, I'll get you this information, whether you have more questions regarding it. I have some things to look at, and I'll continue to do more research and, potentially look at some eventualities, if this or that, and what it could do.
Well, what's the statutory requirement for moratorium? If we're to request a moratorium, how much time do you need to publish before it becomes an effect?
Yep, so, number one, so it needs to, typically for it to come into effect, you typically go past the appeal period. What we tend to do is here for most regulations and everything, we do them to the next meeting date. So it'd be at that meeting, it gets decided with an effective date at the next meeting date, it gets published in the paper. And the key thing is pretty much based upon that, we have to publish it about 13 days before the meeting to actually have it in the paper to be the front part, the notice part. But typically what we'll do is that next meeting is when we make it, publish it, and then you wait for an appeal period after that. And the most important thing about a moratorium is it's the reason for the moratorium. They're always limited and specific. So the specific time frame, and it has a specific purpose. And the purpose would be, to review the regulations and to come up with a revised set of regulations. It can't, and that's not the intent here at all, of course, but the intent not to just say, okay, moratorium for moratorium's sake. The intent of a moratorium would be to revise the regulations and look at these uses.
I'd be interested to know what the other municipalities in our area, of similar, population, how many at least. I mean, we don't have any production facilities.
No.
Newington.
Yeah.
But we're zoned that they can come into certain zones.
Industrial.
Right, industrial. And we know now we're gonna have 3 retail. So I'd be interested to know about at least the retail side of it, what the like kind of the regional landscape looks like.
Any other questions? Town planner update or?
Yeah, so that covers most of it, but I will actually, because there was some, I like mentioning Facebook at a meeting, but there was some talk about Facebook about Keeney. We met last week.
Yes.
Yeah, we met last week with the owners and the developer to go over a plan. So they are still working on the site plan. They're working on their parking, they're working on their uses and ratios, and staff has been working with them as they develop these plans and continued forward, providing our comments for them to come before the commission with potentially a pre-application of what they're looking to do. Again, they got approval for the front part of it to convert it to retail, but hadn't converted over the rest of it. So they would be looking for that final approval of how the site is anticipated to be worked out. And again, staff had recommended that they come up with that basket of uses that they plan to use, especially if they're special permit uses, and understand how it is. Because the worst thing to have is for them to have a tenant, potential tenant, and then to tell the tenant, well, no, I need to go through public hearing, this, that. If they have something in hand with an approval that says you can come into here and really all you have to do is get a building permit, that would be ideal. So that's what we're working with them towards that end. So again, we have been in discussions with them. We met with them last week and we anticipate them moving forward.
And that's what they did at 3333. They came in with all their special permits at that one thing and just got everything approved up front.
Right.
And it's easier for them and their tenants.
Thank you. Any communications?
None.
Okay.
Yeah, I did receive an email right before this meeting, but I haven't even had a chance to read it. So it will be in your next packet in 2 weeks.
Public comments on items not on the agenda.
Nobody online, Mr. Chairman.
This my chair? Okay.
Have a seat.
This is weird. Matt Floor, 258 Audubon. I just want to say I'm really pleased by the discussion around cannabis facilities and the ongoing work that you're doing, Mr. Planner. One thing that kind of comes to mind initially is, looking at those space or distance requirements, excuse me, among other neighboring towns. The maximum that we do see there is, 5,000 feet in Farmington for medical, 2,500 and some others. Those are kind of those large numbers. And as you referenced, our current facilities are within those 2,500 or 5,000 bounds. And so I guess caution the commission to certainly not just take a look at space and distance requirements, because there is a concern around the congestion and proximity of our current locations, and they are actually at that maximum already. I mean, perhaps the answer is 10,000, perhaps the answer is restricting them from the BT zone, business zone, now that, there are several on that zone. Whatever it might be, I don't think it's just planner for getting back to myself and Councilor Drake, I forwarded your way with that blight order that was referenced at a previous meeting for Best Market Plaza, and also looking forward to some more discussions around that inventory and what work that we can do on a council to support that. So thank you.
Anyone else wish to comment on public this page? Okay. Marks by commissioners. Anybody online?
No, online, Mr. Chairman.
Closing remarks by the chairman. I'm showing up tonight. I know this is a little strange setup, to say the least, but it was a very productive meeting. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. All in favor? Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Oh, you can end it. And
Look at that, 9 have to.
Did it stop recording? I didn't hear it say it stopped recording.
Oh, yeah, they made an exception.
Your stuff right there.
Oh,
very delayed.